And Alderman McClanathan, the meeting's yours.
Thank you. Next on the agenda is a motion, or is approval of the agenda. Is there a motion to approve the agenda?
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Alderperson Bradshaw, seconded by Alderperson Ross. Any discussion? All in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? The motion carries. Public comments, there were none that signed in. So then we'll go to item 6, presentation of the capital improvement budget by City Manager Crow and Director Carr. Gentlemen?
Thank you, Council. We're going to, when we get to Director Carr, we did make a few changes in the budget from what you got when we handed it out at the strategic planning, and a little bit of changes from what was posted online. So we'll start first with the capital budget outside of the Public Works, which is going to cover fire, police, IT. So again, we are looking at replacement for a new ladder truck or aerial truck. The chief has been going, along with his team, been going around and looking at platforms, replaces and looking at what the best option is and dealing with the cost. That's programmed in, I believe, in 2021, 2022, and we had set up the capital bill to do that, and so that's where we're gaining the capital money. We'll also need to be looking at replacing an ambulance. 3 new police cars will also be coming up. Now, you need to understand that the cars are no longer, I don't believe Chief's going to recommend Dodge Darts. We're probably getting the SUVs. And we have 2 options, either the Explorer version or the Dodge Darts. The Darts are very difficult to get in and out of, and the police actually do damage their knees, so we're going to probably go with the SUVs, and that's what we have budgeted. And then a new training facility. This is the training and maintenance facility that we talked about last year in the capital plan. We're starting to get some design work done on it already over in the fire station, so we can negotiate with Morris as we go forward. So this is the fire capital plan. You'll notice the big is we pulled the radio replacement with us gaining grants this year. That's going to do a full replacement of our radios, and we are continuing to transfer that amount into corporate as we have out of the capital. So, anything you want to add, Chief, to this? So, we'll, he's saying that we may need to amend the corporate amount to make it a little bit higher as we go forward. We're still working out what our receipts are. As you know, you changed the corporate last year, so we got 46% of the corporate for the transfer to corporate out of the capital, the fees, and 54% to fire for capital.
Manager Crow.
Yep.
Could you talk to me about the line 914, the apparatus replacement schedule? What's the length of time on that?
So that's the replacement of the apparatus. We've talked about the tower. That is over, I believe, we have it set up for what, 15-year or 10-year replacement?
10-year amortization on the bond issue. If we use bonds, if we use this particular replacement model, we would have to fund this much. We're looking at 1.3 million for a platform, so that's a 10-year replacement amount.
And we had originally looked at the one that was being offered by Pierce, and our guys were actually able to take it off its when they were moving it and testing it, they were able to take it off its three positions stanchions that it lays out. So their chief wanted to go out and look at some other options. So he's been visiting, he and his team's been visiting other and looking at other platforms as we go forward.
Thank you. Also, what do we have left on the transfer to debt for the bond on Central Station? Do we know approximately how many years we have left on that, or need to get back?
2 years, this year and next year.
I'll follow up with you a little later on that one.
Okay, as it goes out through multiple years out there. That was also, we bonded out, that's putting in a bond for the building of the, we should have a separate line item too for the bonding out for building the new training facility as we go forward. That's where it picks up after Central Station's paid off.
Thanks for the clarification.
All right. Police, we talked a little bit about the squads. We are seeing beginning to, this is a little higher than we've had in past years because the SUVs do run higher. The other thing is we're going to have to find, because we do not have SUVs in our fleet, it's going to be, the outfitting of those are going to be higher as we go forward until we get them all changed over. As every year we go forward with these, we do look, we bring Enterprise in and they see if they can meet our goals for leasing out. The one issue that is their lease with the amount of mileage just at this point does not make sense to us.
Manager Crowe.
Yes,
The SUVs in the fleet, are those the 3 new vehicles that you spoke of?
that's correct.
Okay, thank you.
That's correct.
Manager Wu,
Yeah.
are you speaking of the Dodge Dart or the Dodge Charger?
It's the Dart, right? Or
Yes, the Dodge Dart is also a platform
Oh,
so,
that they have been sending out
okay.
as squad cars.
So,
yeah, you need
Could we all speak close to the mic? We were having some issues. We get angry texts so if they can't hear us. So
Right,
that's for everybody. Thanks.
Chair.
the Dodge Dart is a smaller, mid-sized vehicle.
That's correct.
So yes, that would be a problem for some of the officers, yeah.
That's correct.
The Ford Explorer would be a lot better vehicle for them.
Alderperson Brashaw.
That was basically my question, was that's why they're going to upgrade to a larger vehicle? They're more
Yeah.
human-friendly?
Ford has completely, we actually bought some of the last cars this year that Ford is putting out. Ford has shifted all of their, GM has gotten out of the police cars, and Ford has shifted all their police vehicles over to SUVs. So the other thing we looked at is the handling, as we looked at them, of the SUVs would be better in our weather than the Darts.
Okay, thank you.
Chair,
Alderman Meislick.
so is the plan for vehicles continually to lease?
So what we do is, when we come in with the vehicles, we lease all of our fleet vehicles that we do out of Public Works.
Yeah.
Enterprise has not been able to meet our requirements from because of the. Sorry, didn't know you put a touch screen in there. So they have not been, because of the mileage we are basically replacing the cars every 3 years. Our mileage is too high on them to lease them. So they came in, they've made proposals each year. The outfitting ran in the area of about $65,000 per vehicle once we got into outfitting for the police. So we have decided at this point, we ask them we meet every November with Enterprise to look at our overall fleet. And we always ask them to see what the cost is, if they can do any better for us on the squad cars, and they have not at this point been able to.
Yeah, thank you.
All right. Last, the IT. This is the big thing here is we are, that we're going to be seeing is a snow plowing and salting monitoring system. This will actually allow us to track, and will also be also allow us to track for leaf removal as well. So we can, as we purchase this, and then all of the public works radios. If you don't know, there was a change in the law dealing with cell phones, the use of personal cell phones in the vehicles that we have to reimburse for the cell phones if they're using their personal cell phones. So we've looked at all of the radios in the public works vehicles when we're doing on-call out at replacing them. So, and then we'll be coming out in 2022. It'll be time to start refreshing our software and hardware again. We just got done through a major refresh on both City Hall, and we're doing police station right now.
Manager Crowe, going back one slide to the police departments, it's way out there on fiscal year 2024, but just for not only now, but for further down the road, what do we need to know for the potential new station?
So I always say the strictly a placeholder. That 2024 is a placeholder. It tells us that we got to start thinking about it. What we found is they put the new generator in for this police station. We started having drainage problems around the station. We're getting some flooding. The roof needs some major work. So it's either replacement or refurbish the existing station. And we're basically doing a lot of work internally. We put it out there to start so we can start thinking about, all right, we need to think about design, think about whether we want to move the station, think about refurbishment. This becomes a placeholder for us to start, because on the capital plan, when you put it out there, you got to think about how you're going to finance it, what the mechanisms are, think about the design work on it.
Thank you.
Manager Crowe, I also would like to backtrack a little bit to the police department capital plan. Since this was just a briefing, I was kind of hoping you'd go over each line item. Some of the items, I'm not sure what they apply to. I mean, just very briefly.
Okay. All right. Well, I'm going to turn it over to the chief to go more in detail then.
Thank you.
Going down from the squad cars, the flooring in the basement is coming up. It's brittle. It's breaking all the time. So we need to replace those floors in there. The internal mechanics, some of the water fountains, the drinking fountains, and some of the fixtures have been broken down, and those need to be replaced also. The Motorola radios, the majority of our radios are still the original radios that we had when we got the original Starcom grant. So they're 15 to 20 years old. They were end of life 3 years ago, so we're using parts from other radios. We're still able to get them fixed, but we need to get those updated a little more. The computer storage, we are rapidly running out of places to hold our data with all the information that we have to maintain and evidence to maintain. So we're rapidly running out of storage space for those things. The panel replacement in the fire panel in the basement, we've been getting by, and we actually had to harvest some parts from the old City Hall's fire system to keep ours running. It's always been recommended, at least for the last 2 years on the inspection, that needs to be replaced. So we're working through that. The locker room has been the same for at least the last 24 years. The lockers are breaking down in the locker room and is in serious need of an upgrade. And the last item on there is the bathroom at 709 South Liberty. We had that budgeted in there several years ago, and it's been put off to bring that up to handicap standards for disabilities, so we can utilize that for more effective meetings and things at that location.
Thank you very much.
Madam Clerk, if you didn't already have it, I'd ask that the minutes reflect that Alderperson Busker was here at 5:03 and Alderperson Parker at 5:14.
I missed Parker, thank you.
Thank you.
Chair,
Yes.
thank you. I just want to thank you, Chief, for the information. There again, as an older person, when I'm looking at some of this, when it says Motorola APX 6000 PO, and I'm like, I don't know what that is. So sometimes, you know, Manager Crowe may know what some of these items are, but a standard, or I should say, a lay citizen may not, and I would like to know what they are too, so thank you.
Chair.
Alderman Ross.
Yes, Chief Summers, how long has the existing police department been there?
It's 73 or 78.
I can answer that because I was the first officer in that building that was hired. So they opened it in January 1976.
It's been there a while.
Any other questions? All right, I'm going to turn it over to Director. Let me go through the unknowns. So, unknowns in the budget. The good news, I will tell you, council, right now, tentatively, we are in the black. This is the overall budget. We're going to give you the full budget at the next committee of the whole. But we have 3 litigation cases. Talking with our insurance company, I put the litigation and the cost out there that have driven our cost up. And actually, there are a total of 5 litigation cases. So that is one of those. The 640,000 has actually set a ceiling at $2 million. So, Jake, there's a change in local distributed funds. We didn't know what it was. Randy found out that it's actually gone up here. They're going to give us a little bit more in personal property replacement tax. The other thing is what I heard at the cannabis, so the impact of adult cannabis, what they told us at the briefing that myself and Chief Summers and Attorney Cox and Attorney Cisnowski said, what they say of $3,600 per is about what we're going to get for out of the state for adult cannabis to help training with the police department. Yes, you did hear me right. $3,600.
That's it?
That's it.
Cheers.
Alderman Ross.
How much does the whole training cost?
It is significant because one of the things we found out was our guys have to all go through 2 additional classes in order to write tickets for adult cannabis.
For the DUI portion, there's some significant training that they have to go through. It's either a drug recognition expert, which is very lengthy, or the A-RIDE. I forget what that all stands for, but it's a purpose-driven traffic safety training that includes drug detection and alcohol detection.
Okay, thank you.
Chair.
Alderperson Bradshaw.
Manager Crowe, in your opinion, is the state trying to force us to have the sales tax go through to help finance some of this training?
Well, so our 3% sales tax just goes into the general fund, which we've already passed.
Right.
And so what this did was, as part of the bill, they wrote in an 8% distribution based upon population. And what they were saying is that on the average community will be about 36 based upon what they sell, and why it's an estimate of $3,600 is because the tax goes up based upon your THC level within the adult cannabis.
Chair.
Go ahead.
I think you explained that to me in Greek because I'm not a drug person, so I'm not really sure about all those specific amounts, but it doesn't seem right that the state expects us to train our officers only on $3,600, that they must think we're getting the money from somewhere.
That it would surprise us all when they said that was the only amount when they gave the briefing, the Chiefs Association gave the briefing.
That's very discouraging.
So the majority of the money goes into the state.
Sure. With regards to training, for a drug recognition expert, is it possible to have one per shift, or you're suggesting everybody on the sworn list gets trained?
No, what they recommend is one per shift, and then all your other officers have to go through this other training, or they could be held up as not valid. And we looked at it, you said it was a 5-day training that they have to go through, or the stops would not be considered valid for adult cannabis. Could be if challenged, not be upheld. It was an eye-opening briefing we got. So, change in motor fuel tax, we've actually seen about 37,000 or 39,000 this first month.
It was 38,000 the first
So
month.
we don't know if that will continue on. The one thing that we're going to bring forward in the council meeting is we can use that money to, additional money, we had not budgeted this year, but additional money to take down ash trees. That's one of the authorized, I'll make it clear for the listening audience, it is only ash trees. And you have to be in an ash zone, basically, to apply for that. And Director Carr has done a good job of going out and getting that, getting all the information. So we're going to be proposing that to you at the council meeting, the MFT, for this year, and then look at it next year. We can take down about 60 trees for $100,000. That's what we can do. And that includes stump removal, if I'm correct, right? Yeah, it's what's in the, so. The other thing is we are our large vehicle fleet. So what we found out is we order the vehicles. It's going to take us a year to basically get a delivery on any new trucks. We already know about the hook trucks. We had 2 of our trucks have problems. The 2 older trucks, 2004, 2005, they're having problems with their beds. Those standard trucks last for 15 years, and we're coming to the end of their life. But unfortunately, you have to order them a year in advance to get a replacement for them. And that's what we've found out. So the impact to the capital bill, we've already seen some of this discussions with on the airport. When I went down had to go to Springfield for a 45-minute meeting talking about the capital bill for the airport. I wish they could travel up here. They are set aside $144 million for municipal airports. We don't know what the breakup will actually be. What they talk to us about is initiatives to increase economic development, but we cannot build hangars, which is interesting. The capital bill specifically says, and the capital bill is going to, in both the cannabis bill and the capital bill are going to be smoothed out in the veto session, how the breakups are going to be going. So they said specifically it's for capital improvement in the airports. So one of the things we talked to them about is running fiber because we have out to the airport, and also the possibility of running water and sewer because we already have that priced out. We already have a shovel-ready job. Our engineering firm said don't count on anything that's not aviation. So, but those are the 2 things we talked about down there with them. Fence line, we do have some fence line that's on the tips that we could also be picking up in that capital bill. Water and sewer, we're going to have our public hearing for water, for sewer coming up. The water, we've had a discussion with IEPA. Some of the larger bills they have pushed off to approving. We've got approval to start on the well, but the water treatment facility, they are pushing out to June to give us the money because that's when the money for the capital bill is going to come available. So the larger projects, they're pushing it out. And additionally, they feel some of the rotating money, as they had more municipalities this last year submit than they have money, and they're hoping that'll break up with the capital bill. What they do have money for is we're going to get money for the lead service line. We're going to go ahead and authorize that replacement and to start the well and the water mains. We expect the water main money to start arriving in the March-April timeframe for the IEPA loan. They do say that we are on track based upon what we submitted. We are on track. for what we submitted for the next 5 years, based upon the capital bill and what the money is. And we, Fairgraham and I had a conversation with the IEPA. They say we actually have one of the most, the best laid out programs that they've seen. The sewer, there is the sewer program, the money, we'll have the public hearing. Our program's been approved. Again, they don't know the extent and the breakup for that money, but that's only a 30% forgivable loans for wastewater treatment. The Adams Street sewer is included in that because that's considered one of our main sewer mains as we go in. So the replacement of that will be in that bill, will be in that loan, the first sets of loans we have for the wastewater treatment facility. And then roads, we were asked to submit up to a $5 million project for roads back in when they were putting the budget together. We submitted $5.4 million for the rework from front to back on Empire. We're waiting to see what comes out in the capital bill. We know that we're going to get a minimum of $150,000. Not that that can resurface Empire, but we have Empire built into our capital plan. If we have another way, we're going to be taking care of Empire. But we did submit that as our capital project, including the completion of the bike path, as well as completion of curb and gutter. I do not think that we'll be getting that money, but that was required for us to submission. We basically had about a 72-hour turnaround. Unfortunately, we had it all shovel ready to go, and we were able to get it in. So and that's kind of the unknowns that we have in the budget. So with that, I am going to turn it over to Director Carr, who's going to talk about Public Works, Water and Sewer.
Put it up here.
Used to the little thing at the bottom, it's not there. Right. Changed up the pictures a little bit, kind of bring us to where we're at currently. As you can kind of see, we got the water treatment plant. It's going to sit in the Burchard Hills area, right there on the top right. It's going to be kind of our pride and joy of the water and sewer department. Then we kind of sit across the bottom, and we've got some of what we don't want. So we've got the truck that broke down last year with the cracked frame. We've got Hancock Bridge there with partial bridge rail that has since been taken care of with some guardrail, and then a collection of our dated water main pipes. So when we go through, we've talked about, wow, that is small.
You can see it on the screen, can't you?
I can, but nobody else can. All right, well, can we do this on the fly? There you go.
Okay.
Right, I got you. Capital bonds. So the top big four, Phase B, the bond issues are all things that were done in the past, we're paying off. Then we kind of break down into the water program that Lowell's talking about with the IEPA loans. That'd be your Phase 1 through 7. Phase 1 is the well and plant. Phase 2 is the water main projects along Cleveland and some of the looping projects. Water main 3 is the Willow plant, went the well there. 4, 5, and 6 will be the Adams Street projects. then it'll shift into Stevenson, and then Park and Laurel to kind of finish off some of those areas where we've got some real aged infrastructure on the ground. Then you can see we're going to shift into the wastewater treatment plant improvements. That was also Lowell speaking about our sanitary or our sewer project plan that was approved, and then the other lead service line phases kind of beneath that. So these are breaking down the same phases that I was just referring to, the Burchard tank, Willow tank, or not the tanks, the wells and the treatment plants. And then the Carroll Avenue tank coating, that'd be the painting of the tank. All of these, we spoke of at length in the last few capital plans. They've been creeping forward as we go. Still have our fire hydrant painting. That has begun, and it will continue for the next 3 years. By that time, we'll have them all painted. But if you've seen them out there, they'll look pretty good. They're pretty bright yellow, so they're doing a good job cleaning those up for us. We go into the water main replacements, as we spoke about with the phase 2 next year. That's the Sylvan Court. That got added late. That's actually not part of phase 2, but that's looking for next year. Both the water main and the sanitary sewer replacement over in the Sylvan Court, Lawn Place, Lawn Court area. We brought the design through council maybe a month or two ago. And then, as you can see, phase 4 with Adams Street and Clinton Place. Phase 5, Stevenson Street, and then phase 6, the Laurel Park Waddell. Santa Fe used to be a part of that, but it has been shifted forward to next year. We've had over a dozen breaks in the last handful of years, so it's time to get that show on the road.
The one thing I will point out is that Chicago, that's the streetscaping plan that we're starting to work on to start streetscaping Chicago. Do that in the 2022 timeframe. Bury all the utilities and upgrade them.
Chair?
Alderman Meisner.
So just a question on this, where I see phase 2, phase 4, 5 blanked out, I don't see dollar values there. Can you explain?
Those are on the first slide.
Okay. They're on the,
Yeah, the other chunk that I deleted out of this one.
oh, I see. Thank you.
So they were a part of that. I broke out the phases of them.
Okay.
Yep, that was just,
Okay,
this
thank you.
slide was just breaking them down.
Okay, I see it on the handout. Thank you for explaining.
Man, all these look better on my computer. This goes into sanitary force main replacement, the different construction for the sanitary side, and then we also get into our SCADA upgrades with the new water plant. We've got our water meter custom portal in there for the next few years. That's so that way people at home can open up their phone or app and see how much water they're using. They can get alerts for high usage, for breaks and leaks, kind of help people be a little bit more fiscally responsible on their own end. And then the SCADA design and installation underneath it, that again, that's transferring us all of our new stuff to the cloud and bring the water plant, the new water plants up to work on that cloud as well. So then the sanitary sewer underneath it, kind of following in line. The Hillcrest Lawn, Dale, Sylvan, Oakdale, that little thing that was brought through council, kind of sitting next year, along with some lining and manhole rehabilitations. We've been doing those for the last few years. Our manholes have quite a few problems, so bringing that stuff up, reducing the I&I or the infiltration, it'll help with our plant, keep it a little bit more stable. during some of these rain events. Then we've got the Adam Street design and construction in 2021. It's going to be a very large project coming through. And underneath that, we've got our storm sewer. So we've got scheduled to do the stormwater study. It's going to look at all of our pipes, see where they're all at, what year storms they're all designed for, whether it's a 2, 5, 10, so on. And then kind of going through there, we'll use that to then begin to identify the areas that need the most significant upgrades and allow us to attack those specific that take care of the largest areas and the most people.
And so that when you look at the studies for stormwater, so if there ain't, when you look at what kind of, when they talk about a 2, 5, or 10-year storm, it's based upon the intensity of the storm. So a 10-year storm is like 1 inch of rain in a 6-hour period, 1.5 inches of rain in a 6-hour period. And that's what you design your models to, or I forget what the 5-year storm is. And it's like over a 24-hour period.
I would have to look those up.
Director?
Yes.
Looking at the study then, that'll give you a citywide view similar to what you've done for the streets and also the water mains?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay, and going back a slide, I mean, you don't need to go, but going back a slide on the projects when you're talking about phase 2 and 3, generally we're still determining those based on age deterioration and prioritizing the ones that need to get taken care of quickest?
Yes.
Okay. And it looks like you cover, notwithstanding that, it looks like you still cover a fair amount of a wide variety of the areas in the city in phase 2, it looks like. Quite a few wards are covered, it looks like.
Yes, yeah, we're looping a lot of different areas. And then some of those are coming right off of the wastewater, or the water treatment plant's gonna be going in, and then that kind of thing.
Okay.
So that gets us out of the water sewer and storm, and into our streets and forestry. And you are never going to be able to read all the vehicles. But in general, maintenance contract-wise, this is the material cost that the street department uses. So it's asphalt, it's patch. These are the MFT dollars that we set aside at the beginning of the year for just the maintenance contract. This keeps our guys busy working on the roads while using the MFT dollars up. Then it's also got the chip seals underneath it. We didn't have a whole lot of time to do much chip seal prep this year, so the 20,000 we had budgeted this year, we couldn't use. So the intent would be we do some chip seal prep work, and then we get the contract out to get a handful of streets chip sealed each year. Kind of the ones that, the outliers in the city that kind of feel a little bit more like country roads, a lot of ditches, stuff like that. Kind of give them the surface they need to get rid of some of the patches or the potholes. And it's efficient design. So we got the fleet leasing program. So if we look at the dark numbers versus the red numbers, so the red numbers are the projections. And so as you can kind of see, the top 2/3 of that list we already have under lease. That was our first year, and then they kind of pick up in 2024. Without knowing what the exact buyback is going to be from them, it's hard to kind of reach out on what those are. So those are a real guess right now. I think we've got it as about a half.
That's what they're estimating to us. Each year they come in and say, here's what your vehicles are worth. And they may make a recommendation early on to swap out a vehicle at a different point based upon what the market is. Like, they actually, last year, they approached us about possibly selling back our Colorados, even though that we'd only had them for a year.
Yes. Yep. And I know we've got our meeting set up for, I think, next month on the replacements we've got going forward. So everything on this list right now we currently are leasing. Comes all the way down through our code enforcement, and then we start this year with the ones to remain. So the remaining vehicles that still need to come out are animal control. We've got 2 1-ton dump plows, both for cemetery and forestry out there still. We've got Got one for forestry, two for our senior street maintenance fellows. Then we come into the rest of the building inspector, and then we've got some more water and sewer vehicles there at the bottom. And then underneath that, we've got our fleet vehicles listed out. That it's more like our small equipments. So our mowers, the mini excavator that we've got, that we picked up, the backhoe, some compressors and pumps, and then we've got the 2 hook lift trucks that Lowell was speaking about earlier. And then we've got some attachments for the Polaris to make it a little bit more usable. The snow blower will allow it to do a better job on the bike path. Right now, on deep snows, our Polaris has a hard time getting through it because once we put it up on the side, it can't go fast enough to kind of push it over the windrow. So the snow blower would help us clear that path off a little bit better, as well as downtown, and let us push it into the street quicker. The brush cutter, we've got some roads over east of the Peck that have some pretty good overgrowth that are encroaching onto the roadways as well as on Lancaster. And then we also have everything along the bike path that's kind of grown over the bike path. This would allow us to use that Polaris for a few other things than just throwing down some salt. Underneath that, we've got the towable leaf vacuum. We've got the 2 hook trucks with the vacuum. This is another one that just kind of gets towed behind. It's very similar to what we have now, but instead of it blowing the leaves into the truck, we can pull it with a 1-ton, and it kind of self-contained, and it's about 4 or 5 times larger than our current setup stuff, so it would reduce the amount of dumps we'd have to do. Our guys currently do their own painting, so the paint machine is getting really close to its usable life. So we put that on here, and then we threw in a paver. If we're going to keep doing the paving that we're doing right now, our little bike path paver is going to break down, and we're going to have no paver. So that's just a spot holder to keep it in mind moving forward in the future. And then underneath that starts the fleet replacement. So you guys are aware, we do have 20 trucks that sit within our fleet. We've got 4 1998s right now, and then our 04 and 05 just broke down. The beds and the hook lift and the beds and the lifts on the back have kind of rusted out to the point where if they were to raise them up with salt in it, the whole bed and the lift system probably just fall out on the back and onto the road. So we've got those 2 beds coming in, hopefully within 3 or 4 weeks, get us there in time for winter. But with the 20 trucks, that's looking at 1 to 2 trucks every year replacing to try to keep it that 15-year truck period. So we've got it kind of lined out for the next 7 years here for you.
Director.
Yes.
Thank you. And Manager Crow, when we were talking about the leasing, one of the benefits of looking at the leasing was as we got into the system where you're having the exchanges and things of that nature, we're going to start seeing decreased costs. Now, I realize we're still kind of in the initial process of getting through some old stuff. At what point in this plan are we going to start seeing these costs level out or decrease?
Well, we've actually seen, so with the buyback, sell the trucks, the first year our trucks were sold, we only got $16,000 back. But we are seeing money, and we're gonna start seeing, that by year 7 is when they are actually, as a full break even, where the cost, that is where the cost that we spend out equals the cost that we are.
Okay. And looking around what probably is year 7, not year 7 on here, but year 7 since we implemented, that's when you're around the 780, and it looks like it's plateauing around there.
Well, it's actually will drop, because what'll happen at about year 7 is, well, it may be earlier because we had so many trucks up front. The sellback on those trucks will actually offset a large amount of cost that we have, and that's why you see a decrease. We'll get a better estimate this year from Enterprise what the resale value on those vehicles are.
Okay, so we're not seeing the projected decrease yet.
No.
But you say within a year or 2, that's the time frame we should start seeing at the tail end those costs coming down.
And Enterprise may ask us to sell back some trucks this year or next year, so their goal is to have, of the 22 trucks in our fleet, 23 trucks is that we have a regular rotation of like 5 trucks every year. Unfortunately, our trucks, we had to replace 19 trucks and vehicles the first year.
Thank you.
Streets.
And this gets into the road work that we're projecting out the next few years. We've got Chicago Avenue, that's the streetscaping project where we're gonna bury all the utilities, give this a nice corridor through downtown there. The Meadows, Dirk and Rosenteal is gonna go at the same time as the water and sewer project. So that way we can get them both fixed, get everything going at the same time. We don't have to get in there and replace everything multiple times. Empire Court is one of the roads that was marked as need replacement. We were trying to fill out the rest of our original bond payment. And so as I was kind of going through the same way we did last year with the Old Cherokee, which is Countryside Estates projects, is we get those roads that have the high quality water main underneath it, that have the pavement that is in poor condition. So that way we don't have to worry about Swiss cheese in the pavements as we move forward. Empire Court fell into that one. So underneath that we've got Empire, and that's running from Park to West. That would be a mill and overlay on that pavement itself. And then they would put the pavement markings back. Sylvan, Lawn, and Hillcrest, this is another one we're gonna run it at the same time. We do the sanitary sewer, water sewer. If all the road is coming out with us being that deep, it only makes sense for us to put the road back the way it should be. Again, one of those we can get in and get out in one time. And then we've got the Flow Street surface. So we're gonna take care of most of that 90,000 this year with the project that's going on right now. Depends on how much they finish of the north section will be how much of that will be there to remain. And then using the motor fuel tax to pay, we still have the Gladewood Bridge or the Demeter Bridge project. It's still sitting out there. It keeps getting moved back because of the environmental clearances. But we believe we've gotten to the next step on the environmental stuff. Only one of the muscles is going to be in the way. Then underneath that, we've got the Hancock Bridge design. That's where we're seeking the major bridge funds from IDOT. So that one is another one that's going to be pretty flexible on where it ends up landing, just depending on where we can get approved for funding on that. The Adams Street reconstruction, we've got the design currently going. That design is going to be finished up this year, and then it'll go out for construction next year. It's a large enough project that it's going to take 2 construction seasons to do, especially with all the IDOT red tape cutting we've got to take care of on the construction side. So those 2 years, and we'll also use our STU funding allotment for that.
So one of the things that council needs to be aware on the STU funding, we have to either put 2 large sidewalks in or a bike path. And talking with the park district, we're going to put a bike path on one side of it as we go forward. That's a requirement out of STU funding. So we'll have a bike path along Adams that meets with the master bike plan.
Yep, the STU funds are a federal fund, and with federal funding, you have to make it usable for all acts of life. So you have to make it usable for walkers, for riders, for drivers, and so the complete streets kind of comes in, and I mean, it increases the project, but it also is going to give us a nice project that we can hang our hat on at the end of the day and kind of show off to other communities. So it's going to give us the entrance we need coming off of 20 there east of town. Next step down after that, we've got the Stevenson Street project. This is kind of going to go at the same time or just right after the water main project. We're going to remove all the water main in the road, so then once we've got that taken up, it makes sense for us to get in and resurface that. So that way we've got a project that lasts for 20, 25 years without us having to really get our hands in there too much. And then after that, we've got the South Demeter project. And then we were looking at another area, and Homer kind of sticks out. It's a pretty rough road there in the middle of town that we need to take care of. So then coming down into the buildings, much as Matt was talking about the police department, the Island Street facilities are getting pretty old, pretty dated. One of the things that we keep being told by people doing the inspection is that the gas pump, if we were to have something go down on it, we're pretty much out of luck. It's still running a dot matrix printer, so it's shown its age there. So we've got that gas pump system that's going to be needed, used by everybody in the city. Then we've got the cemetery building roof. It hasn't been re-roofed and it's leaking. So if we're going to try to save that asset, we're going to need to put a new roof on it. Fortunately, our cemetery caretaker is actually, he's put a lot of roofs on in his day. So that cost will probably come down quite a bit because I think he'll probably want to do it himself as opposed to hiring a contractor out there. The loader building roof, if you're out there at our island facility, it's the round roof building. We can't even get up and walk on the building right now because it's just unsafe for us to do that. So the work needed on that roof alone is going to be quite significant. And then the mechanics roof, which is the building right behind the loader bay, has got leaks and peeling. The steel's peeling up pretty much along most of the edge. So our mechanics are having to shift their tools around so they don't get wet. So those are the building that I see in the future. So these are all of our roads here moving forward. See if I can bring it up. So this would be this year. We got the Meadows, the Sylvan Court, the Empire Court. And then the next one we've got the Adams Street corridor as well as the Gladewood Bridge. Then next year after that we would have the Chicago project. That's the Hancock Bridge coming up on the east side. The Stevenson Street corridor with both the water main and then the asphalt surface. That's the South Demeter project and Homer. So kind of focused a little bit to the northwest this year. So as we can kind of see, we're kind of dotting the rest of the map up here with roads as we move forward. Any questions?
Alderman Boardman.
Thank you. I have a couple questions. I'll start with Woodside Drive. That's a project that's being completed currently, right?
Yes.
With the type of replacement that was done, what's the average lifespan for that?
Chip seals are usually 10 to 15 before you got to put another layer on that.
Okay. Follow up.
Go ahead.
One of the areas I see here on the map of the roads is Town Drive in Bradmore. And I feel like we get notice of main breaks there as well. I didn't hear that as an area we're working towards in this plan. Am I right on that?
Yes, you are correct.
When do we plan on working on that road?
I know that's sitting outside of our 7-year plan right now.
Director, do you have a?
No.
Okay. Looking at a couple of these things where we're doing both water main work and road work, some of them already have, curb and gutter, storms for all that stuff. There's a few that I think maybe don't, and you're also doing the storm sewer survey here this year. How are we looking at addressing in the short term some of these projects that we're doing where we're doing water main and road as to whether we put in curb and gutter or don't put in curb and gutter?
So right now, we currently don't have any plans for curb and gutter. That tends to increase the cost of the project, which, I mean, adding more concrete and pipes always does. So if we're wanting to increase the storm capacity of our roads, we can look at that. It's going to reduce the amount of asphalt we can put down, but that's something we can absolutely look at moving forward.
How are we going to make that determination once you have the study moving forward as to which ones you leave which ones you add it to and which ones you don't when you're looking at what's best management for the city as a whole?
So I think the storm the stormwater study that we're wanting to make sure we focus on what we actually have in the ground right now, so that way we can either correct an issue on the larger scale, whether it's a detention pond or it might be one pipe that's flooding out neighborhoods. But then, once we can take care of what we actually have in the ground and make it work the way it should, then I would say we should absolutely open it up to add more. But if we're gonna have a hard time maintaining what we got, I don't know if adding more to that plate is to our technical advantage.
How will we be addressing those systems that don't have that are currently kind of, the ditches that flow? I'm thinking kind of like the Waddell, Hunt, Turner area, things of that nature, where it's large swaths that don't have it. And we've got issues in regards to how draining. I mean, even looking at Santa Fe, obviously that's, not curb and gutter either, but how do we address then, if we're looking first at what we currently have before we look at expansion, how are we going to be addressing over the years here, maintenance of those areas that don't have that and are having drainage issues?
So we can use the stormwater fund and actually program that out, but it's tough to make that program decision based off of the no study. I know where I'd like to use the funding, but without seeing all that and kind of leveraging which projects go where based off of how many people they affect, it's tough to make the call on whether it's going to be Santa Fe or if it's going to be Oak or if it's going to be Meadowbrook. I mean, we do have drainage issues all over town, and I've got a pretty good map with them dotted everywhere.
So it would be fair to say that you're going into the study, your general feeling is not having much of an expansion of curb and gutter, but the study will address how are we handling those areas that don't have curb and gutter and ensuring that there's good, proper drainage on them?
It should help us guide our decision-making moving forward on where we need to place our dollars for the most benefit for the city.
Okay. And what are the odds that we could get a GIS map of your pictures there so that they can be updated as we do the work on them?
Absolutely. I know a guy.
Yeah.
This IT director and his deputy just gave me a thumbs up, so.
Sounds good. Alderman Borneman.
Director, I'm new to this process, so I'm not trying to put you on the spot here, and if the answer is I don't know, that's a fine answer. With regards to the Woodside project, that's a very long road. It's a large project. We're completing it now. Is that something that's necessary to set aside particular funds to maintain that road so it lasts longer, or we're able to avoid resurfacing it in its entirety, or is that something that can just come out of the funds we don't need to specifically put money aside for?
So the way that road gets maintained is going to be a little bit different than how some other roads. There's no crack sealing and stuff like that on chip seal roads. Once it's ready, you just chip seal it again. So I know at the top of that, in the part of the materials, we've got the chip seal program underneath the maintenance costs for the guys that use patch and asphalt and stuff like that. So I could absolutely see us using that chip seal project underneath it as our way to maintain some of the chip seal roads moving forward.
And then follow up with regards to the sewers study, which could identify areas where curb and gutter would be beneficial. That's one of the things that study will do. Is that right?
I believe so.
Okay. And as you know, the residents out there on Woodside Drive, still speaking about that, have a lot of problems. Do you anticipate potential areas where you could identify curb and gutter on that road?
So as for curb and gutter along Woodside Drive, I'm going to have a very different opinion than a lot of people that live out there do. Because I do know that when you put in storm sewer and you put in curb and gutter, you reduce the time of concentration. So every drop of water that falls on the road, once you have curb and gutter, is going to make it to those drainage areas. So the low drainage areas are going to stay where they are. That's just how storm sewer outlets. What's going to happen is every drop of water now that falls on Woodside Drive, if we put curb and gutter there, is going to make its way to that storm sewer, and it's going to get to those low areas faster. There's going to be more water. It's going to get there faster. Gladewood would probably have a pretty hard time with us putting in storm sewer up there.
Mm-hmm.
Go ahead.
And you know I'm asking because the public is asking me. This isn't my personal opinion, I'm just relaying concerns that I've had, but you think that that would result in issues to other areas of the towns, particularly Gladewood?
Yes, I think if we were to reduce the amount of water that can be infiltrated into the grassy areas outside the roadway, we would absolutely greatly impact Gladewood.
Okay, and then I just have another question. So if you look at Town Drive here in Bradmore, it's a red area, and it's not on our 7-year plan. I guess my question is, why isn't that on our 7-year plan at this point? And like I said, I get it, I'm putting you on the spot. If the answer is you don't know right now and you can get back to me, that's fine too.
So the way we had structured our capital plan was to use up our bond money. So our bond money is going to be up. And then we've got the infrastructure bond coming up. And so once it's spent, we didn't want to program every one of our streets out with no way of funding it.
So one of the things so we had 3 years as part of the bond, the 2.8 million that we got. We had 3 years to spend that. That was part of the restriction. The other thing is we did not have a good feeling for what we were going to get for revenues out of the electric and gas tax. Once we have that established, one of the things we talked about was going out for another bond and then looking at additional streets that we can work.
And Manager Crowe, then as part of that, so you're saying the ones that we've got on here are only covered under the current bond?
That's
And then
correct.
once we do that, we could see some additions
That's-
to this, including some of those areas that are in the red?
Yeah, so that in the out years, once we have we know what our funding stream's gonna
Okay.
be. You know, 20% of each of those taxes are set aside for streets.
Right. Any further questions, discussion? We're at 6:02, but
Mr. Chair.
Alderman Busker.
Not necessarily for a director, but for Manager Crowe, looking at all the, all the work we've looked at tonight, has there been discussion on possibly combining a building for all the new facilities? I see the police department and Public Works and also the fire department are talking about new training facilities within the next 10 years or so. Has there been a discussion of maybe combining that to save on construction cost and have a central complex?
So we had, streets is not involved in that discussion. We have had a discussion about combining the fire and police into a building here that we have in downtown. The concern that we had is moving forward is the impact to the neighborhood as, if we have to, because it would impact one of the stations in the third ward if we went to a combining of those. So that would be a policy decision from the council.
Other further discussion for tonight's purposes on the capital improvement budget portion of budget? Hearing none. Thank you, Director, and thank you, Manager Crowe. We did item 7 budget discussion as part of item 6. Just real briefly, approval of schedules. You have a list of the schedules there that are proposed on there, sometimes at 6 o'clock, sometimes at 5, depending on whether we have another meeting beforehand or not. Is there any discussion in regards to that proposed schedule? That takes us through 4 additional more Finance Committee, the whole hearings, a public hearing on November 18th at 5 o'clock, initial approval at 6 p.m. on December 2nd, and then the first and second readings of the levy in December, with the levy needing to be done by the end of December. Any comments or on that? Is there a motion to approve that schedule?
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Alderperson Brashaw, seconded by Alderman Misick. Any discussion? All in favor of that motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The motion carries. Next item on the agenda is public comments. Are there any public comments? Tommy, go ahead.
Joey, we got a banquet coming up on October 16th. I was wondering if you could come to, and maybe tell somebody to contact.
Yeah, you can contact
the main city hall number, so that way I have that information, Tommy.
And that's something you're welcome to come. It's gonna be, I'm gonna get award that special one.
All right, any further comments? Seeing none, then is there a motion to adjourn the Finance Committee of the whole meeting?
So moved. Second.
All right, moved by Alderperson Busker, seconded by, was it Alderman Ross? Okay. All in favor?
Hi.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, this meeting's adjourned. I'd suggest we start our other one in about 2 minutes, 3 minutes, let people shift chairs, things of that nature. All right.
Well, then we will resume at 6:10.